Ellie, what's going on there?
Well, it's the worst possible timing, isn't it, Patrick, for these kind of warnings that the UK is sleepwalking into a food supply crisis. That is a stark warning today from the National Farmers Union. They've held an emergency press conference this afternoon, and they've stated that we've seen the shortage with eggs, haven't we? We've seen the shelves running bare. Some shops have even implemented a 2-box rule when it comes to buying eggs, but they warn today that it might not end there. We could see other foods becoming short on the shelves too. They warned that energy-intensive crops, we know that the cost of energy has increased rapidly in the past year since the illegal invasion of Ukraine by Russia. And they're saying that those crops that need lots of energy to grow, so things like cucumbers, things like tomatoes and pears, they are likely to hit a 37-year low next year. Farmers simply won't be able to afford to grow them. So we could see that food shortage reach our fruit and veg sector. There was also warnings about dairy as well. As we've heard from egg farmers in recent weeks, it hasn't been cost effective to produce eggs. They simply aren't making enough money from them. Well, it could then stem into milk. It could fall below the cost of production. And beef farmers as well, they're considering limiting the number of cows that they breed simply because it's getting too expensive to raise beef in this country. Fertiliser prices have tripled in the past 4 years, and the cost of feed is up by 75%. So lots of issues which mean that we could see a shortage of many different types of food in the next few weeks and months. Well, earlier I spoke to the president of the National Farmers Union, Minette Batters, and I asked her about the current situation.
Everybody will be well aware of inflation, cost of living. For farmers and for growers, they are facing unprecedented cost inflation, currently at over 30%. So it's really, really challenging out there. We're wanting fairness, effectively, everybody in that supply chain to share some of the burden in order to make sure that consumers don't face higher prices or suffer loss of availability, the rationing of eggs being an example at the moment, hence why we've asked for government to have an emergency investigation into the egg sector, use the powers that they have within the Agricultural Act to deal with exceptional market circumstances.
Well, the National Farmers Union say that this is a perfect storm. This is in part down to the Ukraine war. It's also to do with the coronavirus pandemic, and it's also down to Brexit. And they spoke about Brexit red tape and workers' shortages also being factors in this emergency situation. But, Patrick, this ultimately comes down to the consumer, doesn't it? And people who are trying to put food on the table, and they'll be hearing this news and thinking about the cost of food and also likely shortages of food as well. It does mean that if there's less production of food, then prices will continue to go up. And in a cost of living crisis, that is something that's going to be very, very difficult for many people. So that is what the National Farmers Union are calling for today, urgent action in order to keep food production up and keep those prices as low as possible.